You know, one of the things that we have been obviously following closely here and monitoring, and something that I know is near and dear to President Trump's heart, and he continues to monitor, and he made in no uncertain terms it very clear that Hamas has one choice and one chance, and he's done playing. You either turn over every hostage, alive or dead, right now, or face your certain destruction. That's what he said this week. That's a big threat. What does that mean? We bring in Josh Hammer, host of The Josh Hammer Show, author of a brand new book forthcoming called Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation and the Destiny of the West. You can pre-order that now. It's available on the 18th. Hey, Josh, welcome into the show. Good morning.
Chris, good morning. It's great to be with you, my friend.
Likewise, sir. You heard that threat from Donald Trump. Is he going to make good on it is the question.
Chris, I think the better question actually is, will Prime Minister Netanyahu read the room and actually do what has to be done? Because from Israel's perspective, you have to understand, you're never, ever going to get a more supportive president than President Donald Trump. You're never, ever going to get an administration that is more supportive than this whole administration. I mean, basically top on down. I mean, from President Trump to Secretary of State Rubio to the incoming U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, Pete Hegseth. I mean, this whole administration is so all in for Israel, Chris. I honestly, I'm not sure I can even think of something that Israel could try to do vis-a-vis Hamas in Gaza or Hezbollah in Lebanon or the Iranian proxy militias in Jenin and Nablus all throughout Judea and Samaria, aka the West Bank. I can't really think of anything that they could do that this administration, frankly, would not approve of. So if you're Prime Minister Netanyahu, I think you have to be thinking this is a once a generation, arguably a once a lifetime opportunity. And, you know, Donald Trump is an interesting figure, Chris, insofar as the following is concerned. Donald Trump is someone who is a visceral person who respects strength and abhors weakness. That is kind of his modus operandi. That is my reading of his approach to foreign affairs, of his reading of U.S. alliances. And I think when he is giving essentially carte blanche to Israel in a situation like this there, Israel really has a massive, massive responsibility in its hands to take advantage of that. Because when you're given this level of discretion and essentially saying, do what is not just in your interest, but what is in the interest of both of our countries, Israel and the United States, to finish the job against this U.S. recognized foreign terrorist organization that, oh, by the way, Chris, is still holding at least 5 American citizens hostage there in the dungeons of Gaza. If Israel does not act on that, Chris, I think that Donald Trump will take a dimmer view of Israel as well. So really, the ball, frankly, I think is actually more in Bibi's court, actually, than Donald Trump's court. But Donald Trump is certainly saying all the right things. It's a wonderful time for U.S.-Israel relations. That is for sure.
Josh Hammer, host of his own show, The Josh Hammer Show, and a brand new book you can pre-order right now, due out on the 18th, called Israel and Civilization. This is an interesting thing that you bring up, and one that I don't closely follow, nor can I speak to. I've never visited Israel. I'd hope to someday. I don't know really kind of what the pulse of the people is there, but I was always to understand, even prior to this war and even during this war, that Benjamin Netanyahu's favorability, his public perception wasn't great, was my understanding. And I have always thought here domestically he's been stellar. I mean, there's been no greater ally to the United States than Benjamin Netanyahu, in my view. But at home, I guess he's not viewed as favorably. What you just said, is he not now being viewed as tough enough? And could that help him politically if he got tougher? I thought he was really sort of devastating Hamas and Hezbollah, but maybe that was the wrong read.
Well, I think the answer is kind of yes and no. I mean, not to give such a lawyerly answer, but, let me unpack that a little bit there. So Netanyahu is really kind of Israel's version of Trump. They're actually biographically shockingly similar. They were both educated in elite American institutions there. They both have been prosecuted by actors in their respective deep states. Netanyahu has been facing all of his own highly dubious lawfare, shall we say there. He is similarly despised by the left-wing media, by the academic establishment there. It's a very, very similar situation to Donald Trump. So the same way that Trump is a polarizing figure here in the United States, people on the right, good old, American flag flying Americans love him, but the left despises him. Very similar dynamic over in Israel. Now, Israel has shown at times tactical brilliance since October 7th. I think, Chris, for instance, of the Hezbollah beeper operation, which was tremendous stuff. I mean, frankly, the kind of stuff
golden beeper gift, Josh. Sorry to interrupt you. The golden beeper was one of my favorite political moments in recent history, by the way. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. And I totally agree with that, by the way. And for the listeners and viewers, I mean, Bibi literally gifted this golden beeper to Donald Trump. It's absolutely stellar stuff. I mean, incredible stuff there. And that's the kind of thing that spy agencies around the world will still be studying 20, 30 years from now. But I guess I would draw a distinction, Chris, between tactical brilliance and missing the strategic forest for the trees. Because since October 7th, Israel's been very clear that destruction of Hamas as a political and military institution is the preeminent goal in Gaza. And here we are, it's been almost a year and a half, and unfortunately that goal has not actually come yet, frankly, there. So, in order to kind of bolster Israel's credibility in the Middle East, and we're talking here about the Arab world, Chris, really respects one language and one language only, and that language is frankly just raw, unmitigated power. So in order to reestablish deterrence and credibility in its own neck of the woods, but also for the reasons that I just explained, in order to solidify U.S.-Israel relations, where you have such a stalwart, instinctive supporter in Donald Trump, but someone who really only respects strength and abhors weakness there. For all of the above reasons, I think it really is time to kind of ratchet this operation up in Gaza. And again, the ball really is in Bibi Netanyahu and the IDF's courts. That's kind of my read of Donald Trump issuing this threat. It's a threat that is not necessarily, I don't think, has kind of a U.S. military option kind of implicit there. Rather, it's a threat that's basically, at least my reading is kind of saying there, unless you give over the hostages, I'm basically going to tell Bibi, just do your thing and kind of ratchet this thing up.
Josh Hammer, again, author of a brand new book called Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation and the Destiny of the West. He hosts the Josh Hammer Show. Not a ton of time, and this is a really big topic, but I do want to graze on it because you're here doing a show. You talk to folks like I do. One of the more, I'll just say, unfortunate, and that's to put it mildly, things that I think has developed in some conservative factions is sort of this growing hostility to Israel. I don't think it's prevalent amongst conservatives and Republicans, but it's out there. You know what I'm saying? And I like to continue to address it because I think it's important we do. Do you know what I'm talking about, and how do you feel about it?
Chris, I mean, not only do I know you're talking about, that's probably the number one reason I wrote this whole book. This book is called, again, Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation, the Destiny of the West. Chris, the book is really it's not just about the state of Israel and U.S.-Israel relations. The book is ultimately calling for a Jewish-Christian, biblical nationalist alliance, because only that alliance alone of Jews and Christians uniting in our shared biblical heritage, only that alliance, I think, will have the fortitude, the spine, and kind of the moral heft in order to combat what I identify as the three hegemonic forces that seek to destroy us, which are wokeism, Islamism, and global neoliberalism. So the book is really written not just for people interested in foreign affairs, but it's really written, I think, for a lot of kind of younger MAGA sympathetic conservatives, even younger Christians who are not getting good advice in the pews in their church. They're really just trying to kind of shore up Jewish-Christian relations, because I think that this biblical inheritance, Chris, is really the quintessence of what we speak about when we say Western civilization. I mean, people say the fate of the West, Western civilization. What are we talking about? We're talking about the Bible, okay? We're talking about the Bible. The Bible is the West. Western civilization, I argue, begins with God's revelation to Moses and the Israelites at Mount Sinai. Everything that we take for granted today is downstream of that. That's what I argue in the book, and that is my message to the young folks who are being tempted by a lot of the voices that you're talking about there that I have squarely on my radar as well. Thankfully, those voices are kind of marginalized to certain pockets of social media at the moment there, but it is a very serious threat, and my eye is squarely on it, I assure you.
The Josh Hammer Show and this important book. I hope we can have you back, Josh, our first conversation, but I hope it's not our last. It's Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation and the Destiny of the West. Thank you so much, Josh. I appreciate you.
My pleasure, Chris. Thank you.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.